What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and today I'm going to start a long series of videos in which I go over Apple Music's top 100 album list because they've decided to get into the fray and make some controversy and put out a list that they have decided is the top 100 albums of all time, which is a pretty crazy, bar. I'm going to go through them. I'm out of school. It's summer here. I got nothing to do during the day. As Tommy Shaw once said, I have too much time on my hands. So I'm going to do each group of 10 and make 10 separate videos because, and then the 11th will be my list of what I think is the top 100. And I'm going to approach it as if I'm an editor and that this list has been submitted to me and there's 5 of us. So as an editor of this list, I have the ability to remove completely 20 albums, 20%, 1/5. So that I can do. I don't know if there are that many I want to remove. And then I can replace them with 20 of my own. I know there are some that were not on the list when I read over it. I also have the ability to simply replace 5 albums in which, for example, let's say the Rolling Stones are at 20 with Tattoo You. It's not going to happen. They might be at 20. It won't be with Tattoo You. I can say, I agree with 20, but I'm going to put Some Girls in there. None of those things are going to happen, but that's just an example. I also can move anything anywhere if I don't take it off the list. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. The connection to Zappa is none because he's not on this list. I remember seeing no Zappa album on this list. I'm going to fix this by the time it's done. So I'm going to go over through 100 through 91. Which ones I'll take off, which ones I'll leave on, which ones I'll move. And then I'll probably do one a day for like the next 10 days because I got nothing else to do. By the way, quickly, you get end of the year teacher presents. I got what is probably the best present I've ever gotten in my life this year from one of my students. He gave me this. He gave me a nice Cannibal Corpse album right there that he picked out himself. Yeah, the kid's 5. I actually went to that show a couple weeks ago, saw him there, and then he asked his dad if he could get this for me for an end of the year present. They did wrap it up and give it to me after school so the other kids didn't have to see it, but yeah, pretty sweet gift. So anyways, yeah, that's it. I'm just going to go through them, 100 through 91. Then you leave your comments. I'm open to being convinced to keep stuff on this list. That's why I like lists like this, because I will revisit stuff I haven't listened to in years. I'll check out stuff maybe I've never listened to. I'll reevaluate stuff I thought was worse than it was. And I like that kind of stuff. I like to like more music. So my hope by the end of this is at least one person or one album that I wasn't loving before I will learn to love. But yeah, let's start this. Let's start it right now. What do we got? Number 100 is Robin's Body Count. Sort of an electronic pop dance album, some really good electronic grooves in there, some like hypnotic grooves. Don't think there's an analog instrument on this entire album other than maybe Robin's voice. It has that sort of futuristic, somewhat sterile, cold electronic sound, but Robin will come in with these melodies that are at times robotic. The opening song is called Fembot. At times lean into that futuristic vibe, but then at other times bring this really nice sort of Kate Bush art pop vibe to it. Some of the pop melodies are fantastic. This is staying on the list. I might even move it up. I am going to move it up. By the end of this video, it will be higher, and I'll explain why. This was in my top 10 when it came out. I think it was like 2010. Saw her twice on that tour. Fantastic shows. So yeah, I really like this album. Robin, I think this is one of the better of this genre. I think Janelle Monáe's debut album came out this same year. That's sort of like, that futuristic electronic pop with warmth in the vocals. This one's absolutely fantastic. Staying on the list. Number 99 is the Eagles Hotel California. No, this is not staying on the list. I think it has 5 pretty good, if not 2 great songs and 5 pretty good songs. Hotel California is a classic. I think the lyrics are good. I love the whole intro. I love the dual guitar solo at the end. Life on the Fast Lane is a perfect Southern California song. This album does do a good job of capturing what it's like to live and grow up in Southern California, which is what I did. I think Victim of Love is kind of a fun little rocker. Apparently, it was recorded live. Joe Walsh is bringing some good energy to the band at this point. Um, I think the two ballads, the two Henley, I think Henley Fry wrote them, but Henley sings both of them, Wasted Time, and particularly The Last Resort, which I think is also sort of about Southern California and its hedonism and its sort of cynical despair, all that kind of stuff. Really good songs. But New Kid in Town, no. The Wasted Time reprise with like strings and stuff, just no. Pretty Maids All in a Row, Try and Love Again, those things just don't do anything for me. If you're going to be a top 100, you got to bring it on every track. You can't have too many slouches. So I'm going to say for now, easily Hotel California is off this list. Yes, it sold millions of album copies. Yes, we still hear two of the songs on the radio all the time. But a top 100 album, that's a hard sell for me. That's a hard sell. So Hotel California, off the list. Next is Travis Scott's Astroworld. I like this album. I think it's a good album. I'm generally not a fan of rap or hip hop in which the vocals are altered or processed or there's studio tricks put on them. I think if you're going to drop a hip hop album or a rap album, like I know a certain hip hop artist used a lot of like auto tune. I don't want that in my hip hop or my rap. I like clean vocals. I want them like not modulated or affected in any way. I still think this is a really strong album. However, being that it's at number 98, and I know there was at least one, I think two rap / hip hop albums that weren't on this list that I want to put on this list, I see this eventually just getting bumped off anyways. Like I'm not going to move it up. If anything, I would keep it here, but I think it's going to get bumped. So for now, even though I think it's a pretty strong album, I'm taking this off. Yeah. So Travis Scott's Astroworld, it's off. It's in the top 100 of hip hop albums of all time, I would argue. But of albums of all time, if we're going to consider all genres, I'm not sure this is a top 100 album. 97, Rage Against the Machine, their debut album. Yeah, they did it, man. They made metal and they made rap work because they did it in their own way. They brought their own sort of protest aggressive version of like metal vibes and they mixed it with protest aggressive rap vocals and it just worked. The Morello, De La Rocha, just combination, it's just perfect. And I think it has to be their debut album. I think when you're raging against the machine, if you're around long enough to make a second album, let alone a third or a fourth, you're not quite raging against the machine as much as raging from inside the machine. So I think the first album has sort of a lightning, strikes at the perfect time type. Everything about this album just works. And when it came out, the energy, the songs, the sequencing, just everything about this album is fantastic. Not only am I going to keep it on the list, I think it needs to go higher on the list. And so it's probably going to end up somewhere in the middle, like 50, 40, 50, 60s. I think this is much better than 97, deserves much more praise than this. Unfortunately, they're probably responsible for a lot of other sort of rap metal type things that nowhere were near as good as this. So maybe they are to blame for that. But again, you compare anything else that follows with this, and this is really better. Also, I ran a poetry slam for way too long now, decades. We always have one like De La Rocha type poet in the scene who's just spitting this hardcore political stuff and, trying to be aggressive and revolutionary. And it doesn't always work. In fact, it almost always never works. And I blame Rage for that, but it shows the importance of this album and the long terms effect that it had over the course of time. So I'm leaving this on the list, and it's moving up. So in my final version of this list, it will be much higher. Number 96 is Lord's Pure Heroin. No, it's a good album, but I think it's Lord's got a sound. She's got sort of an disaffected youth mentality. Like maybe she speaks for a generation. There's definitely a very specific energy that she's bringing. Some of the songs are fantastic, but this is one of those artists where I think maybe in a couple years, if she gets more experience and maybe gets her heart broken a couple times, or just, goes through the trials and tribulations of life, maybe has the ability to actually drop a top 100 album. But this isn't it. I mean, it's a good album. But and for the year it came out, when did it come out? It didn't come out like 2013. There's not a lot of really great albums that dropped in that year, but this might be one of the better albums of that year, but I don't think it's maybe the best. What else dropped that year? Yeezus dropped that year. Random Access Memories. Yeah, not a lot of really great stuff dropped that year. Walking on to Pretty Days by Kurt Vile, which I really love. Sunbather by Deaf Heaven came out that year. So there was some good stuff, but this is not a top 100 album. I don't think over time it's quite going to have sort of the lingering effect that it sort of immediately had in maybe the years that followed as far as like pop music goes and young artists. It's a good listen. I like it, but it's off the list. Lord is not going to stay on the list. Number 95 is Usher Confessions. Great album, without a doubt. Some absolutely stellar tracks on here throughout. I've said this before, and there are some people who think it's a short attention span complaint, but I don't think it's a short attention span complaint. I think it's a actual reality complaint. Is the album's too long. It's like an hour long. I think there are tracks on here that are good because Usher's on them, and his charisma and his presence and his singing will carry the song, but the songs themselves maybe aren't that special. I think you trim a couple things on here, get it down to 45 minutes. You have maybe a tighter, sleeker, even 40 minutes, more effective album, which every track just hits. And being that it's all the way back in 95, I can't see it staying on the list with other things I want to add that weren't on here. So I am taking Usher Confessions off the list. I would understand if somebody makes the argument that it definitely needs to stay, but I actually think there's another sort of R&B flavored album that's going to be in this video that is better enough than this to warrant why Usher should be off, and the one that's coming up later should stay on. So Usher's off the list. Number 94, Burial's Untrue. An early sort of trip hop album, sort of, no, not trip hop, that's Massive Attack, some dubstep, like an early sort of really ambient sort of dubstep type vibe, an early sort of journey into deep electronics. This is one of those albums that I'm keeping on the list because as an album, it works perfectly. Every individual song might not jump out of you as a complete banger, but the overall effect of this album from start to finish, I think it creates a mood, it creates a feeling. It definitely very much has the forest is greater for the trees. And I think the sequencing, everything about this is one of those albums when you're going to drop it, you just want to experience the whole thing. It's like a chill album to drive to, but it's also got some stuff where you're like, okay, this is maybe a little bit groovy, a little danceable. It is an electronic album, so if you're not a fan of electronic music, I don't think you're going to like this. And generally, I lean more towards live instruments, metal, progressive rock. But this has always been heralded as one of the great electronic albums. Listening to it, I think I can understand why. It very much creates a mood that I think is effective, and it works, and it almost draws you back in to want to listen to it again, just to pick up the subtle changes in direction from song to song and the different nuances. And yeah, so this is an intriguing album. One of those that I can't say I revisit to a lot, but having seen it on this list and checked it out, I'm like, yeah, I see the attraction. I'm keeping this on the list. What's next on the list? I don't even know what number we're on. Number 93 is Solange's A Seat at the Table. This is an R&B album that I'm going to keep on this list. I like this album. I liked it when it came out. I think it's got maybe a little more pop accessibility, or at least maybe the dynamics from song to song are maybe a little more different. I like a lot of the sort of like sociological, like pre-recorded excerpts that, very much place us in a time in a country where, we have social problems and race issues and all that stuff. And there's sort of a grounding in reality that makes this maybe a little more, autobiographical, or at least relevant to many people's experience in the United States. It's a great listen. I'm not the biggest R&B fan, but I do like this album, and I think most of the people who are huge R&B fans, like that neo soul energy, praise this album, and I understand why. So I'm keeping this one on the list. May drop off depending on what other R&B maybe isn't on here that I am familiar with, but for now I'm comfortable keeping Solange on here. Number 92 is Tyler, the Creator's Flower Boy, another absolutely fantastic album. I'm going to keep this. Not going to move it up, going to keep it right here, and who knows what happens as we go on through the list. But it's fun, it's eclectic, it's all over the place, it's intense at times. I don't know, it's got that sort of slight, hip hop psych weirdness energy that compels me. Yeah, it's just a really good hip hop album. Tyler, the Creator, is a really interesting artist. He's got a couple really interesting albums that I think possibly could have made this list. But I'm not going to replace this one. I'm going to keep it here. I think this is a good choice. And then 91, last one, George Michael's Listen Without Prejudice, Volume 1. This is coming off. And the reason this is coming off is because, one, I don't think his first album, Faith, is on here. That's a fun album. Sounds like the 80s. Some of the drum beats are just painfully like 80s sounding. But that's got a lot of really fun songs. Faith is a fun song. Father Figure is a fantastic song. I Want Your Sex is a fun song. Almost All Aside, that whole extended remix version of it, which is like the actual track on the album. The whole second side is some really good sort of dance pop flavors where we have a little more Wham energy. We're not trying to be Sting, as I think this is. I don't think Faith is good enough to keep George Michael on this list and say, okay, keeping him on, but I'm putting Faith here. But if Faith had been here and other editors had thought this is a good enough album, I might leave it on. But as is, I'm taking George Michael off here. This is just, it's him trying to be Sting. I don't think it all works. It's just kind of drags at time. There's like one big song on here, right? Freedom, and even that is forcibly a little bit kind of cheesy and just maybe trying too hard. It's not a horrible album, but I don't think, I think had he continued in the direction of Faith and just indulged in really silly, over-the-top, fun, creative, just let his inner dance child dance and be poppy. I don't want this from George Michael. So, but that Faith, that's a fun album, man. As cheesy as those songs are, it's fun. So yeah, that's off. So after the first 10, this is what I am left with. The ones in green I am keeping. The ones in red are off. And at the bottom of the list, I am moving Robin and Burial up to 91 and 92, moving up a little bit the list. I think Robin's album is just fantastic. Burial's Untrue is, it's a great album. I'm going to respect that. Tyler, the Creator, and Solange are moving back to 99 and 100. I might be willing to drop those. Personally, though, I understand why they're on there. And then Rage Against the Machine, that's just going higher. That's gonna be somewhere much higher on this list, because that's the one I love far more than any other that's so far in this top 10. All right, that's all I got for these. Let me know what you think about these. Drop it in the comments. Do all those things. Yeah, I would love to be convinced that any of the ones I took off should stay on. That's what I'm trying to do here, is just like more music. Give me reasons to. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things, and peace. Talk to you later.